One of the best opportunities in the housing market today is new construction. And this is surprising because throughout my real estate career, I would always expect that you would be paying a premium for a brand new home compared to resale homes. But because of how strange the last year or so has been, builders are now offering really incredible incentives to try and get homebuyers in the door to see their product, their inventory, and hopefully sign on the dotted line to buy a brand new home. This is a trend that I expect will continue in one form or another, whether that's builders continuing to offer these incredible incentives, or as the Trump administration has talked about, they recognize that we have a housing shortage of about 4 million homes. And so they've promised to cut regulations and open up more lands to make it more affordable or less expensive for home builders to build. And hopefully builders would pass along some of those savings to homebuyers, but even if they don't, basic supply and demand dynamics would mean that, hey, if we're able to fill the supply need and bring some more equilibrium to supply and demand, all housing is going to get more affordable. And I personally think that that is good news. And I think that the new construction world offers real incentive for DIY homebuyers, which, of course, that's who this podcast is for. This is the DIY Homebuyer podcast. And if this is your first time listening in, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Nick. I'm your host. I've been a real estate agent, real estate professional for several years now. And in the last 6 months or so, I'm the real estate agent that has gone rogue. And now I am teaching you how to purchase a home without needing to hire a costly buyer's agent. And why would I do that? Why would I torpedo my own business as a buyer's agent to teach you how to do this without me? Well, it's many reasons, but ultimately because I believe it's a better way to buy homes. It's a more financially efficient way, and it's a way that empowers you as the consumer. And I believe that an educated and empowered consumer is the best kind of consumer. So I feel really good being part of making that change. And I feel really grateful that you and so many others are here to be part of it. We're the ones that are changing the industry, much like how 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't imagine booking a vacation to Disneyland without going in and working with a travel agent. Well, now today, you just go online and book it all yourself. And I believe that within the next few years, 5 years at most, that's how we're going to think about home buying as well, is that you are going to have so many tools and resources available to you online that a buyer's agent will, by and large, be a thing of the past. And like I said, I do believe that that is a good thing. In this episode, we're going to talk about why new construction is perfect for DIY homebuyers. I'm going to give you the insider's playbook for negotiating with builders. And then I also want to talk with you about how to protect yourself throughout the process. And I am coming at this from the perspective of I started my role as a licensed real estate agent by representing a local home builder. And so I have gotten to see it from the builder's side, knowing what goes through the builder's mind from a sales perspective, as well as working with buyers that some were represented by a real estate agent and some decided to represent themselves and DIY the process. So I want to talk to you about what I experienced from that side of the table, as well as after I left the builder to go out and build my own business. I've helped people walk through the process of buying new construction homes and been able to teach them what to look out for. And I'll just start with a positive story here. So I had while I was still with the builder, I had a client who came in extremely successful guy, and he and his wife both, like, just total power couple. I met him first and came in, no agent, and just started talking about what it was that the builder had available. We toured maybe 6 homes together across 3 different communities that the builder had available. and honed in on two that this home buyer really, really liked. Now, this was a smart guy. And he knew that by not having a buyer's agent, that gave him like an extra 3% to leverage in his negotiations with the builder. And so what he was able to do was negotiate 2% off of the base price of the house and like a 1% design studio credit for designer selections throughout the building process. So he was able to leverage not having an agent to save him significant money. And this was about $1 million home. So in total, about 30 grand that he was able to save for his family simply by not having an agent. Now, the question is, were there ways that the builder was able to make up that 30 grand that if he had had an agent, the agent would have saved them? That's the argument that buyers agents will make, is that, hey, you can't trust a builder. You need an agent to be looking out for your best interests throughout this process, because builders are going to try and pull the wool over your eyes. And so, do not enter that den of lions and thieves without an agent. And that's pretty strong what buyers agents will say, but I see them say it all the time in my comment sections and in Reddit forums and all those fun places. The question that I always have, though, is, okay, is a buyer's agent realistically going to save anybody $30,000 on a house, or more than $30,000 on a home? And especially when it comes to new constructions, I just think, nah, there's no way. I sold hundreds of homes, and I never saw a buyer's agent be able to negotiate the builder down below, or more than what they were getting paid in their commission. So if the way that you calculate a agent's value is their ability to negotiate a better deal for you, the agent, I believe, actually makes that harder, because here's what we have to understand. The psychology of a builder, they are a business at the end of the day. And so all they're looking at, and this is true of all sellers, but especially for builders, they are just looking at, when all is said and done here, how much money am I getting for this home? And is it enough to cover the cost of building the home, the cost of all of the labor, the cost of all the overhead, and enough to keep the lights on for all my employees and operations for the next month, and more building of homes? That is all they care about. And when your agent is eating up 3% of their potential profits, that builder has less margin to be able to justifiably come down further. But when you don't have an agent eating up that profitability, well, it gives you a lot more room to leverage. So, why is buying a new construction home directly from a builder like the ideal scenario for DIY home buyers? Well, part of what's so difficult in purchasing a resale home from an individual or from a couple that owns it is that it's usually a highly emotional sales process. They have emotional attachments to the home, they're emotional in their negotiations. And so a lot of the work is just trying to manage those emotions. But when you're dealing with a builder, as I just mentioned, it is not an emotional thing for them. It is purely about the numbers. And if it makes sense for the business to sell the house at whatever price you're able to negotiate with them, that is all they care about at the end of the day. And they have highly standardized processes. They use their own contracts for the most part. Pretty much all builders have their own builder contracts that they use. They're just a lot less variables and much greater predictability in the new construction process compared to a resale home. And as for the builder's agent, this really depends builder to builder, but sometimes they are a licensed agent. Oftentimes, they're just a sales employee that the builder has hired to represent them. They're on salary. Either way, yeah, they might be getting a little bit of a commission or a little bit of a bonus, but you should largely see them there as customer service provider. Like they're there to ensure that you as a home buyer have a good experience so that when all is said and done, you leave with warm, fuzzy feelings and leave the builder a great review, because especially local builders, they thrive on having good reviews and good customer experiences. So that is a big, big piece of it. Yes, the sales representative in the model home that you're talking with, they do represent the builder. They're trying to look out for the builder's best interests, but they have a much greater concern for your experience as a customer and your satisfaction than, say, a listing agent would on a resale home. And that's something that as a DIY home buyer, you can really use to your advantage. And then finally, and this is probably the most obvious one, but when you're buying a brand new home, everything is brand new. And this is great because while there are different processes for home building, and whether that's you're buying a spec home, which means that the home is completed or essentially completed and you don't have any say in the design selections, or if you're building something that you're picking out the lot and the floor plan and you get to have a huge say in exact finishes and features that go into that home, either way, it's a brand new home. And especially in that second process where you get to see the home being built, there are so many opportunities for you to check in and do your own quality checks. And even though in the very beginning of this episode, I talked about how the Trump administration is wanting to deregulate things, they're not going to deregulate everything. And the sort of codes and city and county inspections that are required for all new construction, like that's not all going to just go away. So you have several eyes that are on the construction of your home. You're getting the latest of the building codes, which hopefully means a safer and more energy efficient home. And then you've got builder warranties. And these are things that are both required. Pretty much every state has a 1-year workmanship warranty that's required of all builders and contractors. But many builders try to distinguish themselves by adding additional time or additional third-party warranties on top of that just 1-year workmanship warranty. So you have some extra peace of mind that, hey, you get to see a lot more of the construction process. There's a lot less risk about something breaking on day one. And if something does go wrong in that first year, you do have some real recourse. And that's awesome for anybody, but especially for a DIY home buyer, because it just means that you get a lot more oversight and you've got a lot more support and help should something go wrong. So really, I just can't emphasize enough like how perfect new construction is for DIY home buyers. But now let's get to the real good part of, okay, as a DIY home buyer, how can you be the most effective, most strategic in negotiating with builders, especially if that builder is not having to pay 3% to cover the cost of your buyer's agent? Well, let's get into it. Here's something that a lot of folks don't realize, that builders hate reducing the price, the purchase price of their homes. And the reason that they hate price reductions is kind of twofold. One is that the price that the home sells for typically gets recorded publicly. And especially if they're building a lot of homes in one community, it just creates issues if you and your neighbor 3 or 4 doors down have essentially the same floor plan, same size of home, and yet yours is $50,000 less than what they paid for theirs, and you closed within a couple weeks of each other. Like, that's just not a great look for the builder. And secondly, it creates a lot of issues when it comes to appraisal. And so their reason for not wanting to do big price reductions actually has to do with protecting the value of the entire neighborhood, which is good for you as a home buyer living in that community. And it's good for all your neighbors, because if there's a predictability or standardization to what houses are selling for in that community, then it makes it a lot easier for appraisers to value them appropriately. And of course, appraisers are going to anchor on what the lower values are. So even if you were able to negotiate an amazing $100,000 discount compared to what your neighbor three doors down paid, well, uh, the appraiser is now going to go with your home's value as the standard for the neighborhood. So, really, now you've just become the baseline value and have reduced the value of other homes in the neighborhood by perhaps $100,000, which hurts you when it comes to resale. So, the builders are right to look out for how much of a price reduction they're willing to do. But the thing that they are happy to do instead of a price reduction is they are happy to give away upgrades. And this is especially beneficial, like I said, when you're building something from the ground up, because we can talk about structural changes, bigger windows, higher ceilings. We can talk about upgraded countertops, upgraded appliance packages, upgraded carpets, flooring, additional cabinetry, blinds, window coverings. Those are the kind of things that make it that are a lot easier for a builder to add into a deal because they don't show up nearly as much in the appraisal. And if they do, they actually increase the value, the appraised value of the home compared to what you're paying for it. So it does a better job of protecting the valuation across the community while still giving you a really amazing deal. The other thing that they'll do, apart from upgrades, is that they will negotiate closing costs and interest rate buydowns. And especially in an environment like we're in today, where interest rates compared to the last couple of years are still pretty darn high, having a builder contribute $12,000, $15,000 towards an interest rate buydown, whether that's a temporary 2-1 buydown or a more permanent buydown, well, that can go a long way. I mean, that could buy down your interest rate, if a permanent buy down, by perhaps 0.5% for that $12,000, which that could save you several $100s every month, and over the life of your loan, perhaps $100,000 in interest, which is amazing. So recognize that most builders are not going to want to reduce their base pricing, but they will be open to giving you upgrades or towards covering closing costs or helping with loan interest rate buydowns. One of the things that you can keep in mind, though, is that a $20,000 design credit doesn't actually cost the builder $20,000 because there's usually a really significant markup on any of those design selections. So let's say they're going to charge you $10,000 for upgraded flooring. Well, that flooring probably only costs them about $5,000. So, with that in mind, knowing that they are making a lot of margin on those upgrades, you can also kind of leverage that to push for an even greater discount. Like if you're not asking for a purchase price reduction, then maybe instead of asking for $20,000 off, you ask for a $25,000 design credit. But like so many things in life, timing is everything here. And the best deals typically come at two specific times. So, one would be at the end of a fiscal quarter where the builder is concerned about hitting their numbers. Because even if it's a local builder, like they are still getting financing to cover the costs of construction or purchasing land. And so they want their numbers to be strong when they're going to the banks and people that they are getting financing from. So at the end of the quarter, they are much more likely to work with you and give you an amazing deal. And the other time is either when they're opening up a brand new community or when they're trying to close out the last couple of lots in a community. So, whenever they're opening up a brand new community, this is a great time to get in for a couple of reasons. One is that there's sort of just this idea that the builder just wants to get the pump flowing. And sometimes the hardest thing is just to get those first couple of sales. And once they do, then they know, okay, now we've got proof that people are willing to pay these prices. People are going to live here. It makes it easier for other people to say yes. There's just not many early adopters in the world. And so builders realize that we've got to incentivize those first movers, those early adopters that are going to be the first ones to buy a lot or a home in this community. That's a great thing to use to your advantage, especially if you are one of those early adopters. It's also great because, especially in a multi-phased community, the houses that sell in the first phase almost always are the least expensive homes in that community to sell, because typically anytime a builder opens up another phase, they increase the base price of similar homes for that next phase. And sometimes that can be by 2-3% of a price increase, which is awesome because that means everybody in the first phase sees a bump in their equity of that 2-3% just because more homes are being built. So if it's a 4 or 5 phase planned community, by getting in on phase 1, you can see in very short time a really, really significant increase in your equity. And then the opposite is also kind of true, where when there's just a couple of homes left in a community, builders are so ready to be done. They're ready to move on to their next project, to get their crews out of there. They just want to close it out. And you can leverage that to your benefit as well. Now, the trouble with this is that oftentimes the last few remaining lots or homes are the ones that are less desirable. But if it's a home and a community that you like and you recognize that, hey, nobody else seems to be biting on this, well, that's really, really strong leverage for you to be able to negotiate an amazing deal. Again, going back to whether that's design credits or interest rate buy downs or closing cost credits or some combination of both of those. So finally, let's talk about protecting yourself, because this is where home buyers get the most nervous, and this is where traditional real estate agents and buyer agents will lean into your fears, telling you that, hey, the builder is going to try and take advantage of you, and you need somebody looking out for your interests. And let's be real. This is not a perfect world, and there are some shady builders that really will try and take advantage of you. So I don't want to go into this with rose-colored glasses. Now, there are good, reputable builders, and we'll talk about how you find those. But there are some general principles that you should keep in mind to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And rule number 1 is this: always, 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 you get that? Always get everything in writing. If the builder says that they are going to include something for you, or they're going to do, like they're going to throw in the backyard landscaping, or you've agreed to changes, like you're going to add some additional concrete at this price, $8 a square foot, get that in writing right away. Because again, the builder is a business, and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces that go into constructing a home. They also will have turnover, even just within their own staff, whether that's the sales staff or the people in the back office. And you don't want for something that the builder's sales agent promised you to get lost in the shuffle, and then you show up on closing day and that extra slab of concrete that you had asked to add and that the sales agent said, yep, we'll get it in there, all of a sudden it's missing. And your only recourse in that situation is not a, well, the agent told me that it was going to get added. That doesn't work. You have to have it in writing. So just think about it. If it's not in writing, it never happened. You just need to have that in mind. Anytime that you want something from the builder, anytime that you're agreeing to something with the builder, anytime there's a price adjustment or something getting added or removed from your home, get it in writing. I just cannot belabor this point enough. But this is where I see the most issues with new construction. Is there's misinterpretation, mismanagement of expectations, all because we didn't get things in writing. So insist upon that. Always, always, always get it in writing. Hopefully, I've made that clear, but one more time, get it in writing. Rule number 2, hire an inspector. Now, most builder contracts will not allow for an inspection contingency. Some will, and if they do allow for it, yes, take full advantage of having an inspection contingency. But even if they don't allow you to have a contingency, which means that if the inspection is unsatisfactory, you could walk away from the deal and get your earnest money back. Even if they don't allow you that full contingency, they should still allow you to have an inspection. And if they don't allow you to have an inspection, you do not want to work with them. That is not a builder that you want to work with, okay? But most all reputable builders are going to allow you to have a home inspection. And yeah, even though there have been city inspectors and the builders doing their own inspections, and they'll be showing you the different reports that they have, you still want to hire your own inspector. I have seen brand new homes with missing insulation or windows that got installed backwards, or HVAC systems that look like they were installed by a class of kindergartners. It's kind of wild, some of the stuff that you will come across, and you want a third party neutral home inspector that's going to go down underneath the house. They're going to go up into the attic, and they're just going to be ruthless with looking for any sort of issues. Now, I recommend that you do 3 inspections. I recommend that you do a pre-drywall inspection. So this is once the house is framed up and everything is roughed in. So all the plumbing is roughed in, all the electrical is roughed in. You can see where all of the heating and cooling systems are going. But before they actually put the drywall up, this is a great time to have a quick third-party inspector come and just take a look and make sure that, yep, everything looks like it's done well and neat. And it wasn't a class of kindergartners. Like, these were licensed professionals that clearly did the job. That's really helpful. Also, at this point is where you want to go through and get a bunch of good pictures, because you want to know where the water lines are and where electrical is running, so that when you go to hang a TV on the wall, you don't put a nail through a water line. It's one of the cool advantages of new construction, is that you can get in there while the house is being built and get photos and videos of the home before the drywall goes up, so that you know what's behind your walls. This is also really helpful so that if there are warranty issues, you'll be able to go back to these photos and show, hey, look, this is the issue that we have. This is where there's either the leak or where something seems to be installed wrong. So that's the first inspection before the drywall goes up. The next one is before you close on the home. Now, most all builders that are worth their salt are going to allow you to do what's called a blue tape walkthrough, where you walk through with the builder, marking anything that is cosmetically wrong, anything that you've got questions about, basically anything that they need to fix up or repair prior to closing. Well, at that same time, I recommend that you have a whole home inspection done, just like you would have done on a resale home. And now the inspector is going to find things. There has never, ever in the history of the world been a home that was built perfect. There have been some that have been pretty dang close, but the inspector is going to find things, and you can turn those over to the builder. And especially if those are things that are covered by their warranties or that fall within like the scope of just acceptable standard building practices, they will, in all likelihood, take care of everything significant, everything major that is on that list. So paying that $500-600 to have a home inspector out can save you thousands of dollars. And then finally, this is the one that I really love, kind of a hack. Have another inspector come out at like 11 months. If it's a 12-month warranty that you have them come out at 11 months. If you have a 2-year warranty, have them come out at like 22, 23 months and do another full inspection, because it's going to reveal any latent issues or anything that might be covered by warranty, so that you can call the builder or do whatever their warranty process is and say, hey, Here's all the issues that I need for you to take care of before my warranty expires. That's how you really get the most out of that builder warranty coverage. So, those are the 3 inspections that I highly recommend to protect yourself. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite money saving strategies, and this is the design center. Huh. Oh boy, do I have stories about the design center, because this is where builders make a freaking killing. And I talked about that earlier, right? Like, this is why builders are so happy to give you incentives toward the design center, because it looks like they're giving you 20 grand, but it only costs them 10 grand for the things that you're wanting to put into the house. So, here's how educated buyers like you can save thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So here's like my number one example of this. All right. I had a home buyer that was like really into hi-fi audio and home theater kind of stuff. And so they were going to have the builder install this crazy surround sound system in their bonus theater room. And the builder came back with a quote that was like astronomically high. And so the buyer decided, all right, I'm actually just going to have the builder pre-wire everything for me while the walls are opened up, but I'm not going to have them install any of the speakers or amps or the TV. I'll just do all of that after closing. I've seen similar things where buyers have wanted to have hardwood floors in a office space or in the primary bedroom. But when they got the quote from the builder for changing from carpet to hardwood floors in those spaces, they again realized, like, this is 3 or 4 times as much as it would cost me to do it myself or to hire it out to somebody else. So instead, they just go with what the builder includes as the standard flooring, and then they wait until after closing to put in the flooring that they actually want at a steep discount compared to what the builder was going to charge them for it. So, knowing the things that you can do yourself much cheaper after closing is really essential when you're going into the design studio. And these are things like faucets and door handles. Those are pretty easy to install yourself. Ceiling fans, lighting fixtures, those you can change out yourself. Pendant lights. It is crazy to me how builders will not bat an eye at charging you $3,000 for pendant lights above your island when you could go to Home Depot and get the same dang lights for $300. Anyway, you can tell that I'm passionate about this, but knowing what it is that needs to be done prior to closing, what's going to be worth it to you. Generally, cabinetry, that's something that have the builder do it. Countertops, have the builder do it. Anything that has to do with electrical wiring or additional plumbing or gas lines, fireplace, have the builder do all of those things for you. But a lot of the more cosmetic kind of stuff, like I mentioned a moment ago, a lot of that you can do yourself. Even all the smart home stuff, as long as it's wireless, you do the smart home things. Install your own Ring doorbell. Don't pay 3 times as much for the builder to put the Ring doorbell in for you. It's a 20-minute job, unless you don't care about those 20 minutes and you're willing to pay $300 for a 20-minute task. But because you're listening to the DIY Homebuyer podcast, I don't think that's you. All right. As we wrap up, let me give you my top 3 action items if you're considering buying new construction. 1, do your homework on the builder. Online reviews are great. Check on completed communities. What does it look like when all is said and done? Bonus points if you can catch a homeowner that's walking around on the street and ask them, hey, how are you liking your home? How is the experience working with the builder? And then asking the builder about their warranty process and really grilling them on that, getting a feel for what that sales agent is like. Do they seem knowledgeable? Have they been with the company for a long time? Has the builder itself, especially, this is a really important thing. If the builder has been around since before 2008, that's a really good sign because 2008, 2009, 2010 took out a lot of builders that were mismanaging their funds, that didn't set up a healthy business. I'm not saying that there aren't some fantastic builders that have come along in the last 10 years, but if a builder started before 2008 and is still building homes today, they probably are doing things right from a business perspective. So, one, do your homework on the builder. Two, get your financing pre-approved, but don't feel obligated to use the builder's lender. Now, a lot of builders, especially with the incentives that I'm talking about, they require that you use one of their preferred or one of their trusted lenders. The important thing here is that you shop their trusted lender against other lenders, whether that's a bank or credit union that you're set up with or somebody else that you get referred to. And then if the incentives are really great with the builder's trusted lender, but their rates are higher or their costs are more expensive, then you can leverage the quote that you got from somebody else against the builder's trusted lender to try and get a better deal there so that you get the best of both worlds. I'll do another whole episode on what to think through when shopping lenders and the pre-approval process. If the builder's using local lenders that have a good reputation, it's probably going to be fine to go with them, but do shop them, make them compete for your business so that you get the best possible rates and best possible deal. And then number three is to create your own detailed tracking system for everything promised, for every conversation that you've had. Get everything in writing, keep all of that collected and centralized. And hey, fortunately, this is one of the things that I am here to help you with the DIY Homebuyer Academy. So I've got a whole course that's free, totally free. You just got to go to school, SKOOL.com/DIY Homebuyer. Join there. You'll get a much more detailed walkthrough of the whole home buying process. And there's some really great resources there to help you keep everything organized. And then I am building out more of a platform for you to keep everything managed and centralized in one spot. And then if you want to work with me more closely, I'll have a spot where I can actually sit there and see it all and give you feedback and help keep everything on schedule, make sure that you're aware of what's going on. So that's something that we can totally explore further. The best thing to do, though, for now is just join that school group. That way you won't miss out on anything happening related to the DIY Homebuyer Academy. The last thing to keep in mind is to remember that when you're coming in, the builder is expecting to pay a buyer's agent's commission. Maybe that'll change in the future. Probably not. Just know that when they are pricing their homes, they are expecting that there is going to be a buyer's agent that they're going to be having to pay 3% to. So when you come in without a buyer's agent, you're coming in as a buyer that's 3% less for them. And you need to leverage that knowledge for your own advantage. You don't need to give the builder an extra 3% margin because you're not having your own agent. You should be the one who is saving that money, whether you're able to negotiate it as a price reduction, design studio credits, closing cost credits, rate buy downs, however you're able to leverage it. Just make sure that you are seeing the majority, if not all, of that 3% that would otherwise be going to the buyer's agent. So that's a lot. That is all that I've got, though, for today's episode of the DIY Homebuyer podcast. If you've found anything in here helpful, there's a couple of things I'd love for you to do. One, share it. Share it with somebody who's thinking about new construction. I think that this would be really valuable for them to keep in mind and hopefully save them tens of thousands of dollars by having the confidence to do it themselves. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the show, leave a review, leave a comment, whatever it is, just letting me know that you're out there, that you found something that was helpful here. Anything that you do to engage with the show seriously helps with reaching more home buyers and making a better home buyer experience for all as we move into the future. So we can't build that better future without you participating by sharing this message. And then next week, I will be back with another episode on how you can buy a home without having to hire a costly buyer's agent. What'll it be? Well, you'll have to subscribe. Come back next week to find out. Look forward to talking with you again then.